So it seemed to make sense I would go back to Amsterdam one more time. The way you go to Amsterdam from Coimbra is you go to Coimbra A, the old train station, and you get on kind of older intercity regional type trains. This takes you to Coimbra A, a B, and from Coimbra B you get on a much nicer train and you head over the river, and in 2.5 hours, 3 hours, you end up in Lisbon. Pretty easy to get from the Oriente station in Lisbon to the airport, and from the airport on an airplane, from an airplane to Amsterdam, and wake up in the morning to Max insisting I eat a tompoes, and then we went and saw Rosa. And I was stunned. I could not believe that this 98.5-year-old woman had just broken her hip and is in a rehab hospital, but she's walking around, she's pushing things, she's doing it. It's completely amazing. When we left Rosa, we drove out to Amstelveen, took a little walk around, and met Frans Mantel. Jetta couldn't be there. Had a beer, had a completely nice little snack. Frans is just a totally great person. Wonderful to see him. We left Frans and went out to the dunes on the way to Zandvoort. Max had never seen the graveyard of the resistance heroes, but we got there and it was closed. And as we got there, another couple showed up on bicycles. They were also looking to go in, and they also saw it was closed. We spoke to them. We all decided we wanted to go and see this. So we did what any reasonable person would do. We climbed over the fence, and we walked down the road, and we walked into this amazing cemetery full of people who were murdered by the Nazis and who are buried here. Their bodies were recovered from various places in the dunes where they were just buried in shallow graves and put here. They're clustered by date, so people who were killed together were buried together. Martine and Hans were very sweet people. She's a history teacher in the gymnasium, the high school in Haarlem. She's been here with her students. Hans is an artist and an art educator in museums and schools. He had never been here. And there were kids, 21-year-old kids. Very famous Van der Veen resistance hero, an artist who had organized a great deal of resistance activity. They've got a sort of a card file now that you can flip through and look people up. There's a list of everybody who's buried here. Very beautiful, very peaceful, very sad. Max was quite moved by the grave of Hanne Schaft, famous resistance hero, shot here, 25 years old. It was moving to be there with Max. He was shaken by the whole thing. And we walked out, climbed over the fence, and got away clean. Max and I then drove out to Zandvoort. The sun was going down, just beautiful on the beach. You know, thinking about my mother growing up here, think about Hester there. And of course, when you think about Hester growing up there, you think about Haring, and you think about, oh, maybe it's time to have a broodje Haring, and so that's what we did. There it is. Doesn't get any better than having a herring broodje on the beach at Zandvoort. Max is pretty insistent that I show myself actually eating this. And then we walked around and went to the site of the old shul, but I didn't realize that that little plot that I think we saw when we were all there in 2015, that was actually where the synagogue was. Now it's just a little park. We went down to the Parallelweg, at Mom's old house. It's very pretty. It so much feels like Holland. It's so funny to think that she and Dad made their life go back to where these folks all came from. And then we went to this place which Max thought might have been the cool family villa. It turns out this big house there now, a big rooming house, is a relatively newer building, but that's where it was. The Cools had a big mansion there, 13 bedrooms. We walked a little bit around Zandvoort, had some, chips and mayonnaise because that's what you have. Watched the sun go down, and loved the sign, "Don't feed the birds," and then we headed home. As a member of the board, Mux has a bit of an obligation around the Amsterdam Football Club, and there was a youth day, a youth tournament. All sorts of kids and parents there. It was really wild, but meanwhile, Max knows everybody, really everybody. So he took me into the clubhouse, and they've got trophies, they've got history back to 1895. And there he is with the original flag from 1895. And it was kind of cool. These kids were just looking at this trophy cabinet full of trophies. This little guy was the son of one of the other board members in his Paw Patrol uniform. Well, Max knows everyone, and everyone wanted to come up and talk to him. This is really a big part of his life, his home, his connection to the world, really, and it was pretty sweet. I was really happy to be able to share that with him, including this 90-year-old record keeper that Max has known for much of his life. Had a great time. And then back to Rosa's for another croquette for lunch. And again, just amazing to see her like this. And then we went off to Ouderkerk. This is a beautiful little town with a canal and a bridge, and watch the folks going under the bridge. Not much room. But the reason for going here was to go to the Portuguese cemetery. This was established in 1614. It has about 28,000 graves in it, and these are the graves of the Sephardi community of Amsterdam, just outside of the city. And these are just completely astonishing historic graves, early 17th century. These aren't Jewish images. These people grew up, many of them, as Catholics, and they had, I think, very Catholic sensibilities about what wanted to go on the grave. You would never see anything like this in a more modern Jewish grave. But these are beautiful, and there's still bunches of them buried that have just been lost, and there's a foundation that's trying to raise them up off the ground and preserve them and take care of this cemetery. But the images are quite striking. Lots of death images, which again is not something I think you'd normally see. But one of the images that I did think was a very Jewish image was the image of the tree of life, and the grasping of the tree of life, the grasping of Torah, and then the tree of life image being cut, the severing of the tree of life. There was also an image of, look at the hand holding a pitcher of water, washing someone else's hands. That's the sign of a Levite in a 17th century, 21st century grave. The boats would bring the bodies up to on the canal. We found the graves of Henricus Pimentels here. I don't know if they're connected with us in direct ways, but indirectly, yeah, they are. There's lots of Pimentels, including some Holocaust survivors, obviously. And then people who had graves where they put the names of their families who had been killed in the Shoah. Then there are areas that are just filled with these black, what look like basalt graves, just covered with them. Thousands of them. And then we wrapped it up as it closed up. Well, it was a couple of hours of walking through the cemetery, so we needed a pick-me-up. Went across to this baker's right on the side of the canal. had just a little something. And then we went into the city and met the Vasses. And this was a great dinner with Naomi and Jos and Iki and Max. And there's Naomi, Jos is Iki's wife, and there's Iki. I really like these Vasses. And then Max and I drove off. We're just minutes away from his house, and we're in this beautiful polder. Monday morning, it was off to Ajax, the world headquarters of Ajax, and where Mux works, and he's been very involved in this beautiful museum exhibit that they've got there. Very, very nicely done, very interesting. If you're an Ajax fan, this is where you want to go. It's part of the tour. If you go into the Ajax Stadium, they've got all the stuff, all the cups, all the medals, all the medallions, all the shirts, all the videos, the gift shop. Man, they have got everything. And then back to see Rosa and one more croquette and begin planning for her 100th birthday in 18 months' time. Mux got me to the airport. I found that airplane, flew off to Lisbon and back to Coimbra. A wonderful weekend.